Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Streamed and Screened, an entertainment podcast about movies and TV from Lee Enterprises. I'm Terry Lipshetz, managing editor of the National Newsroom at Lee and co-host of the program of Bruce Miller, editor of the Sioux City Journal and a longtime entertainment reporter. And we are excited because it is Oscar nomination time.
You know, for me, it's like Christmas. This really is my Christmas because I love this kind of stuff. And I was at the Oscar nomination announcement one year. It was the coolest thing. Now, you had to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning and, you were dragging, but you got to cheer each one as they were being nominated. And that was kind of fun. I think it was Emma Stone and Seth MacFarlane.
From Family Guy.
They were the ones announcing the nominees. It was like you were at the Oscars at that point. So the announcement is big. The other thing you notice is there are a lot of people from around the world there. It isn't just a little, Poughkeepsie and Biloxi and whatever. No, it was like Paris and Rome and Greece, you name it, they were there. And so it felt really kind of electric. But this year, what do I always complain about with movies?
Length. You love long movies, right? That's your favorite thing.
I hate long movies. And there is not a Best Picture nominee that is under 2 hours this year. 2 hours is the low end.
Oh boy.
That's Conclave. The high end.
The Brutalist, right?
The Brutalist, 3 hours and 35 minutes. And that was my favorite movie of the year. So if I did sit still for that, it better have been good. And it was.
Yeah, but you did get an intermission in that too.
Oh, you bet.
Yeah.
Intermission. I take an intermission in a 2-hour film. When I start seeing things kind of waning, I go, okay, this is the bathroom break. I'm headed out.
I'm trying to think back, but there was a point in time where movies fairly routinely had intermissions, correct?
Yeah, there were big blockbusters back in the 60s. In fact, in the 60s, one of the longest movies ever nominated was Cleopatra. And Cleopatra it was like a special showcase kind of thing, and they had an intermission. And it was a big deal. And they would always try to sell you more food, but those things were shown in kind of specialty theaters where it was just a one theater. They probably didn't have popcorn there. They didn't have, Cinerama was a big thing for that. And they'd be huge long things. But what is the longest film to win an Oscar? How long do you think it is?
Did Godfather Part 2 win an Oscar?
It did.
And I know that one was over 3 hours and 20.
Okay. Do you think that's the longest?
No, this is probably a longer one. Was Oppenheimer?
3 hours, just 3.
Oh, that's a shorty.
It's nothing.
Yeah, you don't even need an intermission for that.
The record holder for years was War and Peace, and it won Best Foreign Film in 1966. It ran 7 hours and 11 minutes.
Wow. Who's sitting through that?
One came and beat it. Now, can you imagine what that might be?
Oh, what's longer than 7 hours?
Here's the trick to it. It was one of those TV documentaries that they put together in the whole package. It was O.J. Simpson Made in America. And it ran 7 hours and 47 minutes.
That won an Oscar?
And it did. And I think it also won an Emmy. But it's one of those things that they said, all right, enough. We are not having this anymore. I'm sure that the committee that was looking at the short lists said, we're not sitting through all of this. And so they made a rule that it couldn't be that way. It couldn't be a multi-part documentary. So that's no longer in there. So those two are probably our longest winners ever, unless something else crops up.
Okay.
But this year, 335 is our big winner. And then the one coming in second, Dune Part 2, 2 hours and 46 minutes. And then your Little Wicked, 2 hours and 40 minutes. So top three, that a lot of time. And, one of them could easily win Best Picture. So longer, is it better? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Is a longer, do you feel like it's better if it's like longer because you think, well, I'm getting more, it's kind of special?
So here's an interesting thing too is and this is something that, with Wicked, we talked about this where maybe next year for the second part it gets its Oscar when they kind of wait, and they've done this before sometimes with multi-part. Is if you remember Lord of the Rings, right? Those were long movies. Peter Jackson is like, I'm taking the book and we're going to do 3 movies out of it, and each of the movies is going to be like 19 hours long, or at least that's what it felt like. But my daughter, who's kind of into sci-fi like I am, wanted to see, like Lord of the Rings and stuff. So we actually watched it, but because she never saw them before, I decided let's watch the director's cut versions of it. Those were long, and we just finished Return of the King, and now that one won the Best Picture, right? That was
It did.
yeah.
And it was 3 hours and 35 minutes.
Do you know how long the director's cut is?
Oh, I'm sure add another hour.
Yeah, it was 4 hours and 23 minutes.
Yeah. That's how
Holy cow.
that's how they roll.
Yep. And it felt like after being done with it, I'm like, yeah, it needed to be pared down a little bit. I know I appreciate the fact that you recorded so much footage that you were trying to really tell the story of this book, and you created, director's cuts that were like 4 hours each. But I didn't need 12 hours of Lord of the Rings.
Well, with the original one, I thought it had ended like 2 or 3 times before it really did.
Yeah.
When they all gathered in the bedroom, do you remember that? I thought, okay,
Yep.
that's it. That's it.
Nope.
Then they wanted to go out to the water, and they're out
Yep.
there. That's it. Nope.
Nope.
No.
Keeps on going.
Yeah.
Keeps on going.
Gone with the Wind is another one like that. Gone with the Wind has an intermission, and whenever you see it on TV, I bet you any money you don't watch it all.
No.
You go, 4 hours, not gonna watch it.
No. I mean, I like long movies if it's a good story to tell. Like the Godfather movies, I've always liked them, and they're long. And I did like it when they kind of did that re-edit where they took the first 2 movies and then spliced them in a way just to tell a linear story for the fun of it. I don't need a 4-hour movie. It's certain ones work. I haven't had a chance to see The Brutalist, but it sounds like The Brutalist works
No,
as a
it's
long
good.
movie. Yeah.
It's good. And you can stop at the halfway point and say, I'll pick up tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it'll be fine.
And
It'll be fine.
Oppenheimer, and the way Oppenheimer was shot, I thought that worked as a long movie.
And going in, you're going to go, okay, I'm sitting for a while. Here are the ground rules for me. This is another big year. This is weird because it's the first time since 1965 that 2 musicals have been nominated for Best Picture.
Wow.
Back in 65, they only had 5 nominees. So that was like a real coup. This year we've got 10. It was My Fair Lady and Mary Poppins. My Fair Lady won Best Picture. Mary Poppins got Best Actress. So this year we've got Emilia Pérez, which has the most nominations at 13. But we also have Wicked, which has 10 nominations and another part.
Right.
So here you think, okay, would they not give anybody from Wicked something this year because we'll wait until next year? That kind of, when it ends, we'll give them something?
Yeah.
Or do they say, let's give it to them now and get them out of the way? Because that's what happened with Dune. Dune looked like it was going to be a real player this year. It's not a player. And Emilia Pérez, as much as it got 13 nominations, there's a lot of hatred toward that film. In Hollywood, they're not all that kind of excited about it. First, it's a foreign language film, so you got to read subtitles. That always turns people off. Second, it's a musical. Third, it has the concept of a drug lord who wants to change his sex, who has to pretend that he doesn't know his wife. I mean, there's a lot there that's out on the table. And I think that's not what they look at as an Oscar picture. You know how they have to have certain ones that 10 years from now, you don't go, oh my God, that was a really big mistake. Why did we pick that one? So I think it has some things against, and it's released by Netflix. Netflix is one that has tried every single year to win Best Picture and can't seem to make it happen. And Roma, I thought for sure would win, didn't win. The Power of the Dog, I thought that had a shot at it. Last year, They had Maestro.
Right.
Mank was another one. They just can't seem to make it happen. But this year, Emilia Pérez could do it for them. So we'll see if that becomes a big thing. Were there surprises that you were shocked at or happy about?
So with 10 pictures, I'm not sure any of these really surprised me. I assumed a Complete Unknown, which I saw would be nominated. It was. I assumed Dune Part 2, which I haven't. It's weird. I haven't seen the first Dune, the second Dune, or the series yet because it's been in my to watch list in Max forever, and I just haven't gotten around to seeing it. But I expected that. I expected Nickel Boys to be nominated based on the buzz. I expected The Substance to be nominated based on the buzz. I expected Wicked. Nothing really surprised me there. I think the only thing that surprised me a little bit is there's usually that one Disney animated film that gets it had nothing. And I think that speaks to the state of Disney animated films right now.
Well, I don't think it's going to win Best Animated Film in that category.
Right. You're talking Inside Out too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one that had the best chance.
Right.
But I think you've got things like Flow, which is even nominated for Best Foreign Language Film.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got The Wild Robot.
Right.
So there are enough in there that, I think this is not a Disney year.
Any surprises? I feel like Adrian Brody is likely the favorite for best.
This is what's fun to watch now because now they start campaigning. Now you see them on all the talk shows. We had Timothée Chalamet last weekend on Saturday Night Live. Cynthia Erivo was on the Jimmy Kimmel show last night. So they're going to turn up, and they are campaigning. Until we see a winner from the Screen Actors Guild Awards, these people are all jockeying for position. I don't think anybody has it locked except Kieran Culkin. Kieran Culkin is going to win the Oscar. I can tell you that right now. But in Best Actor, Adrian Brody has an edge because he's good in it. It's long. It's a real dramatic kind of part, but it's very similar to the one he won before. So I think that could hurt him, and they are pointing that out. Whenever you hear these people kind of handicap the race, it's like, well, okay. And then you look at Colman Domingo, where they say, well, that movie didn't get much more than this, kind of a dead duck. Ralph Fiennes is in a film that is potential for Best Picture. He's in Conclave. He could win because he hasn't won before, and he's one that they really like and should win. But the real kind of wild card here is Sebastian Stan. He was in The Apprentice, which is the Donald Trump story. He played Donald Trump. Donald Trump hates this movie, thinks it's an awful movie. And as a result, you don't know if this is a political statement that they're making in Hollywood, that if they vote for Sebastian Stan, is that their way of saying they don't like Donald Trump? I don't know. But you'll see where it jockeys. I think right now, Timothée Chalamet is making a big move. I think he's one that all he really needs to win this thing is for Dylan to come out and say, he really captured who I am. And who says that that's not going to happen?
Right.
But if he endorses it somehow, that's enough for them to say, let's give it to the kid. The kid needs to win.
It feels like Timothée Chalamet is going to win an Oscar at some point.
Eventually. He's like Leonardo DiCaprio.
He is, yeah.
Yeah.
So versatile. He kind of does everything. And it's just, it's almost like the only thing held against him is just the year. It's almost like, well, he's up against this, which is better, or this, which is better. And it just feels like it needs to fall into place. I thought he was amazing as Dylan, and I thought he really did a good job as Dylan. So I'm rooting for him just because I saw him perform, and that's enough for me.
What could hurt him is that it seems too easy for people to play a singer.
Right.
Lately, we've had a lot of singer nominees, where they're Freddie Mercury, it's Elton John, it's whomever. And people go, yeah, but I don't know. And so that could hurt him. I think Adrian Brody is the front runner right now with Timothée Chalamet right on his heels and could pass him.
Okay.
Actress, did you look at the actress category?
Yeah.
Okay. Demi Moore is making a huge pitch.
Right.
I mean, this is the comeback story. This is a real coup. If she wins, that Yeah, but I don't know that she will, because all she needs to do is lose the Screen Actors Guild Awards, and she's yesterday's news. The other ones are interesting because Carla Sofia Gascon, who is in Emilia Perez, is the first transgender nominee. Now, that could be a reason for them to vote for her. Fernanda Torres, her mother is in the film, and she was nominated back way when as the first Brazilian nominee. And then we have Mikey Madison, who is a dynamite young actress. She will have more opportunities in the future, but this could be a real good way of pushing a newcomer. And then Cynthia Erivo, and we've got her in the wings for next year.
Right.
You know, so
Yeah.
I think at this point Demi Moore is in the lead just because of the full court press she's putting on. But Mikey Madison is the one I would worry about most of all, because all they need is to give her a legitimate award, and she's there.
Yeah. And we'll kind of circle back to supporting actor in a moment, but to kind of compare the supporting actress to the actress categories, I almost feel like if you're going to give an award for Wicked, I feel like I'm more likely to see Ariana Grande win for Best Supporting Actress than Cynthia Erivo for Actress. Does that make sense? It almost like I thought they were both good in it. I thought Ariana Grande just stood out a little bit more.
She was very fun,
Yeah.
and she brought that kind of zip that you're looking for. But people say, well, she's just doing the stuff that Kristen Chenoweth did on stage, and she was mentored by her. So do we want to give her that? But they could go 1-2. You could have them both in as winners, or they could wait until next year, 1-2, see what happens. In the supporting actress category, they got to give Emilia Perez something. And Zoe Saldana really steals the film. She's really the star of it. Why she wasn't nominated for leading actress is anybody's guess, because I think she's on the screen more than the others are. They've already won the Cannes Film Festival Award for Best Actress. 3 of them shared it. And then she won the Golden Globe. So I think she's a real solid choice. And that would bump out Ariana Grande. But we haven't seen her start hitting the streets and asking people to vote for her. So we'll see. I think Isabella Rossellini would be a nice choice because her mother won 3 times. It'd be nice to
Right.
kind of keep it in the family. Felicity Jones, no chance. Doesn't have a chance at all. Same way with, I'm sorry to say, Monica Barbaro from A Complete Unknown.
Yeah.
I think they should be glad to be there at the ceremony.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
But at this point, I think it's Zoe Saldana who's going to win.
Kick it back over to the supporting actor role can be interesting because this is a couple of actors who we got to know from Succession are both well, one in particular is probably heavily favored, but and Kieran Culkin for Real Pain. But Jeremy Strong in The Apprentice. You could see either one of them as an Oscar winner.
He's really good. He plays Roy Cohen, who was an advisor to Donald Trump. And you can just see, I mean, he should be in another film about Roy Cohen, where that's the centerpiece. I think that would be a good way of kind of keeping that going.
Yeah.
But he could win. There's always a surprise. You never know if the one who you think is going to win, everybody says is going to win, and then doesn't win. Then you think, who's it going to be out of that bunch? Edward Norton got great reviews for playing Pete Seeger in A Complete Unknown. Guy Pearce is good in The Brutalist, but it's a very small part. So that could be against him in the process of this. Kieran Culkin is basically doing a two-hander with his co-star. So it's like he could have been a Best Actor consideration, but
I wouldn't be surprised. And I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we did the Dylan episode. I almost think I know everybody is kind of saying it's probably Kieran Culkin. I have a sense it might be Edward Norton, and it's part of it is because a lot of times with this Best Supporting, it's the way to reward that person who's been nominated multiple times but just can't ever seem to win, right? And it also a lot of times will go to that older actor who's kind of been around waiting their turn. He's been, he's been around. I mean, he's been nominated. This is his fourth nomination for an Oscar. He didn't win it when he was younger, with like Primal Fear. He was outstanding in American History X, didn't win it, and he was in Birdman. And these are just, continuing to be nominated for really strong performances, but hasn't come away with the hardware. And it does make me wonder if this is that type of film where people look at it and be like, it's time to reward Edward Norton.
Supporting your claim, Kieran Culkin is basically acting like himself. At least if you see him on the award shows, or if you've seen him in Succession or whatever, that kind of unhinged character is a lot like who he is. So that could hurt him in the whole run of things. Guy Pearce is an interesting one because he's been around a while too. He is due one, but I don't think he's due one for this. So, and then the one we're not talking about is Yuri Borisov from Anora, who is great, but he doesn't come in the movie until the last like half hour. So, what do you say? I still say Kieran Culkin is the leader at this point, but I think Edward Norton could be coming in second at this point.
Exactly. What else is out there? I mean, there's so many categories from the editing to cinematography to costumes. Anything else?
They talk about the best song. That was a real heartbreaker for a lot of them because they were counting on getting a nomination there. Emilia Pérez got 2 nominations, which shocked a lot of people. Diane Warren, who's been nominated like every year for the last how many years, is in there for a film that got no other nominations. And you're looking at this and you think, no wonder they're not singing on the show. They decided not to do any of the best song nominees. It's not like I'm Just Ken from last year where you go, oh, that was the best part of the show. Now, this year, when 2 are in Spanish language, I don't know that, that would make it. There was a song from Sing Sing, which is Colman Domingo's film, called Like a Bird. Did that make an impact? You remember hearing it? And then there's Elton John's song from the documentary about him, Never Too Late, which was all kind of cooked up to get this nomination. So song thing, I can see why they're not singing this year, but it'll be interesting how they present it, because maybe there's something very special where and then we'll have you sing the winning song, some kind of a surprise in the end. But that's an interesting category, because normally you'll look at that and you'll say, oh, here's Billie Eilish winning, or it's some big pop star who has written part of Her is part of it, and they tend to win. And that's not the case this year, except for Elton John.
Right. Yeah, and we have no James Bond movie this year. So, and those movies do really well for getting kind of your traditional pop star something, either a nomination or even an Oscar. I mean, quite a few Bond movies have won Oscars in recent years. So, we don't have that this year.
Challengers was one that they thought was going to do well, both in this category and the best score. Got nothing. Nothing. What's fascinating, though, are the films that are nominated for Grammys for movie songs. None of these. None of these. Yeah. So the Grammys are coming up this weekend, and if they include some of that in the final broadcast, you'll see that it's not the same. There isn't crossover. You're not seeing Lady Gaga win for Shallow.
The song, it feels like it has to have some sort of impactful moment to the movie. There's been a number of times where there's been kind of like that iconic song that came out of a movie, but it didn't get nominated because they're like, well, it's playing over the end credits.
That's a cheesy thing to do, though, where they end up making the film and then they hire somebody to write that song over the credits. You think, well, that wasn't part of the film. Right. That shouldn't win. It's interesting how the editing category is often a bellwether for what Best Picture will be.
Yeah.
And the 5 in there are Anora, The Brutalist, Conclave, Emilia Pérez, and Wicked. So those are basically the 5 that you'd be looking at for Best Picture. And it does match up with what seems to be, common thinking. Director is not the same. And sometimes, a Best Director wins and the picture doesn't win. It used to be if you got one of them, you'd get the other one. They came together, but not anymore. So they could easily have a best director who's not related to the rest of the categories and doesn't get best picture. I don't think that'll happen this year. I really do think that The Brutalist, if The Brutalist is going to take it and run all the way, its director is going to win.
Yeah.
Bradley Corbet, because the thing that'll really sell that film is that it was made for less than $10 million. And Hollywood loves the idea that they made it on the cheap. It looks like $100 million bucks. And it's long. It's got all those things that they like for an Oscar picture. And so in the category for best directors, the director of Emilia Pérez, the director of Anora, and they like him because he's done a lot of great indie films. The director of The Brutalist, the director of The Substance, and the director of A Complete Unknown. And it could match up. One of those could get both of the prizes. But it's interesting this year. I think The Substance is the one that you go, really? That got a best director nomination? I'm not so sure.
Right.
Especially when Nickel Boys, if you see Nickel Boys, it's very creative. And you can see the hand of a director on it. And he should have been nominated, Ramel, but wasn't.
All right. Well, so before we wrap up, so Emilia Pérez led all the nominations with 13. So as of today, where we stand, what movie is gonna come out on top with the most wins come Oscar night?
The thing is, Wicked is going to win all the production things. We're going to see costumes and sets are definitely theirs. I think if the other ones win, something was going wrong. Hairstyles, those what they call below the line things. So Wicked is going to have more than one. Emilia Pérez it'll get foreign language film, I believe, and supporting actress. So it'll get at least 2. The Brutalist, this is where I think they could have as many as 5 or 6.
Okay.
If it goes well. I think Your Complete Unknown is probably up to get 2 awards, 2 or 3 maybe. So we'll see and I don't know if Anora gets Best Actress, that could be, or Best Actress and Best Screenplay, that's about as good as it can hope for.
Yeah. So it does feel, my sense was this is going to be one of those years where you don't see a single film kind of crushing everybody. It's not gonna be Oppenheimer splitting the atom and taking it all, but
I think it's 5 or 6 at best that a picture could win, because there's just too many other ones that are kind of leaders in certain categories.
Right. And it doesn't feel like, even though Emilia Pérez was nominated for so many, it's almost like you're double dipping with the foreign and the rest of the mix. So it's kind of getting in there.
If we give it foreign language film, we don't feel an obligation to give it Best Picture.
Right, exactly.
You know how it's a weird way of thinking all of this. I went through the list and tried to figure out who I would vote for if I were voting. And I think I got 5 for The Brutalist was the most. And then I think I had 3 or 4 for Wicked. And then it dropped off. And there were ones of that 10. Usually they try to give the best picture nominees, they try to give at least 1 to them so that there isn't a shutout, but there are shutouts in years past where they get absolutely nothing. Turning Point was an example of that. It got no awards. I think we could look at that. I think this year could be a year of no winners from some of those nominees, but I still think 5 would be a better way of going. But they like the idea that they can put it on their ads that say it was Oscar nominated for Best Picture.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, we'll all have plenty of time to get caught up because we've got the 97th Academy Awards will air on March 2nd. So get out there or fire up the Hulu or Netflix or wherever you need to go. Get your butt into a seat at the theater. I know a lot of theaters are going to be showing the whole run of Best Picture nominations and stuff. So depending on where you are, check out your local listings and see and get out there and see who's going to win and we'll know in a month.
In some places, The Brutalist is really getting a great audience because they're doing these very kind of small showings at one theater in a city, and people are flocking to see that. So it's like the old school way of doing things. It's like it's the 60s all over again.
Yeah.
So, exactly. Look for that and watch the campaigning. Watch where they're on the talk shows and see who makes the most appearances. Sometimes it does help.
Well, on that note, Thanks for listening, and tune in again next week for another episode of Streamed and Screened.